Free Radical Radio, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us, whether you're listening on the AM dial, online at freeradicalorlando.com, on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, or Liberty Works Radio Network, or however else you may be tuning into the show. We do appreciate you, and you can give us a call, 407-774-0810. Now, if you've been enjoying the show, also make sure to check out freeradicalorlando.com, where you can get all the podcasts of all our previous episodes, all there for you and all for free. Check out the live stream, the blog, and tons of other cool features. And while you're there, make sure to check out our sponsors and support them when they make this show possible. Also, if you've been enjoying the show, check out our Facebook page, Free Radical Radio on Facebook, and you can like that page. We sure would appreciate it. Of course, Jason Freeman from OrlandoCopWatch.com is with us, and attorney Paul Bross, who's representing, I guess, the Flowers family, or just Mr. Flowers, or whatever it is. Somebody that got beat up by the cops. This cop actually tried to tamper with the video, and and say, oh, this guy attacked me, and tried to delete the video. They were able to get the video, which clearly showed a very different picture than this lying cop tried to portray, and it's just a sick case. So let's get into that. How did you come across this case of Mr. Flowers?
I got a call last fall, and I got a call from the family saying that that their father, who 66-year-old Albert Flowers, wonderful, sweet, kind man. He has a business. He has about 200 clients where he does their landscaping and their lawns. And they told me that he had been beaten horrifically by a police officer. And, I was very upset. I was disturbed. Unfortunately, because of the beating, Mr. Flowers was in the hospital for an extended period of time, and he is still pretty much unable to meaningfully communicate because he suffered some serious head injuries. His medical bills are probably $200,000 or $300,000 by it's all said and done. And so I was finally able to get a copy of the video. Apparently, the officer turned off the audio and the video right before he beat Mr. Flowers. And before. So this shows his criminal intent right up front.
That sounds premeditated to me.
Absolutely. And unbeknownst to the officer, there was a backup system in the trunk, and there was a recording was actually captured on a hard drive in the trunk, and the officer got reprimanded by the agency, not for beating Mr. Flowers, but for turning off the recording system. Mm-hmm. And because of the officer's actions, we don't have any audio to hear what was said by the officer or by Mr. Flowers. But no one's alleged that Mr. Flowers ever threatened the officer. But I hope your listeners go online and look at that video while they're listening to this show, because the officer squares up and gets himself into position as Mr. Flowers is walking towards him, and then kicks him. And Mr. Flowers goes flying to the ground, and the officer then jumps upon Mr. Flowers and starts punching him, pummeling in the face over and over and over again. And when you look at the photographs of Mr. Flowers' face after the beating, it is horrific. His face is swollen, his eyes are shut. He looks like a completely different human being than he does normally, than he does today. And then, to add insult to injury, another officer walks up and then casually tases Mr. Flowers in the face while he's being choked by another officer. And then towards the end of the video, and it's kind of hard to see, your listeners will have to look pretty carefully, but towards the end of the video, another officer, while there's three officers on top of Mr. Flowers' back, another officer comes up and tases Mr. Flowers again in the back. And he has taser injuries to his back also. But Mr. Flowers...
This is a 66-year-old man that has done nothing wrong.
With dementia, right?
With dementia. And his dementia, I don't want to mislead people. He was able to lead and run his business. He was able to communicate. His dementia was just sometimes he would forget, if he had, done this or done that. But he was able to function. He was able to run his business. After the trauma and his head injuries, his son has now taken over the business. And Mr. Flowers has never been in trouble. He has never been arrested ever before this incident. And I have gotten numerous calls from people he's worked for 20, 30 years expressing their outrage because he was such a sweet, kind man. And I've spoken to a lot of other lawyers, judges, prosecutors who are also very upset by this incident. If this can happen to, a lot of times people incorrectly assume that only bad guys get beat up by the cops. Right. And they incorrectly assume that, well, if you're a good law-abiding citizen, then you're safe and the cops aren't going to do something bad to you. But Mr. Flowers and the gentleman, the 86-year-old gentleman you mentioned earlier, what was his name?
That was Daniel DeLay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think society is starting to realize that nobody is safe from a bad cop.
Right.
Nobody is safe from, a corrupted officer, and there are good law enforcement officers out there, and I'm friends with some of them, and I respect some of them, but some of them joke that they're going to court to test a lie today.
Test a lie.
Test a lie. I've heard them say that. I've heard them say, when in doubt, resisting without, which means if you don't know why to arrest somebody, just charge them with resisting arrest without violence. And we see, actually, I have photographs that we could maybe post on your website of another gentleman who this same Officer Mittendorf, arrested about a month before he arrested Mr. Flowers and beat the hell out of him. I got pictures of his face all bruised. And what was the charge? Resisting arrest without violence. What happened to that charge? It was dropped. Where's Officer Mittendorf today? He's getting paid by the city of Melbourne. I hope that makes you all feel real good.
This is just incredible. And so this guy clearly has a history of beating people up, a history of violence. You know, why is this guy allowed to be on the force? I mean, he's still on the force, right?
The city of Melbourne released a statement today, which I hope you get the pleasure of reading because it makes absolutely no sense. It's gobbledygook, and it is doublespeak, and it is ridiculous. But the basic end result of their statement is, well, Officer Mittendorf is on extended leave because of an unrelated injury, which they did not say what it was. And we've decided that he's going to be transferred and patrolling a different part of town. So instead of cutting out the cancer, they took the cancer from your lungs and they put it in your brain. They moved the problem to somewhere else.
They're trying to shift him away so that in hopes that like there's no more public outrage about this, in hopes that people aren't trying to sue him and sue the department and all this kind of stuff. Just trying to shuffle him away, hopefully everybody will forget about this horrific incident where a 66-year-old man was beaten so badly he was in the hospital for over a month, right?
Over a month, and he is terrified. He is afraid to go outside. He will not work. He basically lays in bed all day staring at the ceiling. And it's not only the physical harm and the injuries, it's the humiliation of knowing that, a police officer who you hope is going to help you could beat the hell out of you in such a terrible manner. I was actually having a couple cocktails when I first saw the video, and I was showing one of my friends a copy of the video, and my friend says, "Why did he call somebody?" And I said, "Well, who the hell is he going to call?
Exactly.
Call some more cops to come beat up on him? I mean, there's
more
no one
cops
to call.
showed up. They tased him in the face.
I know.
What the hell?
I mean, it's like, and unfortunately, the only thing our system can do is allow us to sue. And these lawsuits, I want people to understand, are not simple. They're very complicated lawsuits. A lot of people don't do them. They're very expensive, they're time-consuming, but it's necessary because if we do not push back as a society, we will become more and more subjugated. We will become more and more like cattle, and we will become more and more controlled, and that is not what America is about. That is not what this country is about. This country is about being respectful and being treated with respect. The protect and serve days are long gone, and it's very, very sad.
And it's not until the taxpayers have to pony up the dough for these corrupt cops time and time again that they're going to get sick of paying for it. They're going to get sick of the abuse and say, we're not going to take it no more. These cops need to be fired. We're not going to keep paying for them to beat us.
Yeah, and this is the sick point too. Even if Mr. Flowers sues and gets $1 billion, which he should, who's going to pay that? It's not going to be this jerk-off cop. It's going to be the department, the government, the taxpayer money is going to settle whatever this ends up being, if, God willing, if you get some sort of settlement out of this.
But if the taxpayers are going to tolerate it, they deserve to be on the hook for it.
What's sad, though, is the money, it may help pay for his medical bills, and he does require 24-hour care right now, but he's lost out on, Mr. Flowers has 5 kids. He has beautiful grandchildren. Actually, my 4-year-old son was playing with his grandchildren when we first met, and he cannot enjoy that part of his life now. They took his golden years away from him. The part of his life where he could spend with his wife and his children and his grandchildren, that's all gone because Mr. Flowers, he has so much brain and head injury. He really doesn't really know what's going on. It's sad. It breaks my heart.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. It's sick. Now what? Assumably, what did they actually charge Mr. Flowers with?
They initially charged Mr. Flowers with assaulting a law enforcement officer.
Of course they did!
And resisting arrest without violence, because the officer in his police report says that Mr. Flowers approached me in an aggressive manner, and I was afraid that he might somehow attack me. And after the video came out, it was absolutely clear that there was no assault because Mr. Flowers walks up to him in a slow, gentle manner, like you would expect a 66-year-old man, he's been working all day to walk up towards you. Nothing threatening, nothing said, no weapons, nothing. The officer even says he could see both of his hands and saw there was nothing in his hands. And actually, when the officer first arrived on scene, he was told, Mr. Flowers suffers from dementia and he's hard of hearing, and you may need to talk slow. Sometimes it takes him a little time to comprehend. And the officer shook his head in recognition and heard this. And this was actually the nephew who was telling the officer this. And that's when the officer bowed up and kicked Mr. Flowers like he was kicking down somebody's door.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. We have multiple police officers savagely beating and electrocuting an old man. If this was the four of us in the room here committing this act, we'd all be in prison for 25 years. This is sick, but because these people have pieces of tin on their chest, they're allowed to do whatever the hell they want. I'm sick of it.
And the fact that each one of those officers all three of them showed up separately, and each individually abused the guy shows
What the
that it's
hell?
not some isolated incidents of police abuse. This is systematic within the police community. That's what they do. This is how they get off, is by beating people that are helpless.
Free Radical Radio. We'll be right back with your calls and more. Give us a call, 407-774-0810.